Hi friends, I'm Laura, and welcome to my podcast, Her Journey Towards Change. This is a faith-based life coaching podcast for women who, like me, are on a journey to live the best life possible. And then something happens, something unforeseen, and everything changes. Life feels foreign and you feel stuck. And it's difficult to move forward, and reaching out can be hard, right? Believe me, I know. If this is you, this podcast is for you. I don't claim to have all the answers, but I know who does. God wants more for us, for you and for me. You were created to live your best life. So I hope you will go on this journey with me to a more positive perspective and take those hard steps together through her journey towards change. Together, let's break through the barriers which are holding us back from achieving what God has called us to be. So let's go, and I hope you will go on this journey with me. Hey everybody, welcome back to the podcast. I'm Laura, your host, and you are listening to Her Journey Towards Change. And today I'm interviewing Ronne Rock, and she's here to discuss her book. Ronne Rock weaves themes of transformative hope and grace-filled leadership into everything she shares on page and stage. She's an author and speaker, offering honest encouragement and road-tested wisdom, which I love that. I'm going to ask her about that one. Road-tested wisdom about topics ranging from leadership and ministry engagement to discovering your God-crafted design and purpose. You'll find her words on work and life balance shared in the Joyful Life magazine, and her stories of hope are offered up regularly as she serves as engagement manager for Orphan Outreach, which is a global nonprofit that provides care for the orphaned and vulnerable. Her book, One Woman Can Change the World, Reclaiming Your God-Designed Influence and Impact Right Where You Are, is available wherever you can buy books. Ronne lives in Texas Hill Country with her husband, Brad, and her rescue pup, Pearl. So welcome, Ronne. I'm so glad to meet you. So glad that you're finally here. We've tried a few times to schedule this, and we've had to reschedule. So it's really good to finally meet you today.
I know. I'm so glad to see. I feel like I know you already from the interwebs
Yes.
and things, but oh my gosh, there is nothing like seeing, and this is as close as it can be right now,
It
right?
is.
Seeing a real life human person
Yes.
via Zoom. I will take it. I will take it. It's perfect.
At least we don't have to wear masks doing this.
I know.
I mean,
That's okay. Even though I have my collection now. I'm
isn't it
pretty
weird?
much fashion forward with my masks
I'm
these
serious
days.
though. When this whole thing started back in March, it's like everybody had to start wearing a mask, and it's like, okay, this is only going to be for a little while.
Mm-hmm.
But like we're into it almost a year now,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
you still see masks, and it's like it's more like if you don't wear it, it's
Mm-hmm.
weird when you don't wear it.
Yeah. I
And
know my grandson in particular. I mean, both my grandkids, they are in school, and their school meets in person. The kids mask up and stuff. And my grandson will forget to take his mask off,
yeah,
and they'll go, "Hey, Sawyer, you can take your mask off." And he goes, "Why? It's comfy." Because they do. They have the masks that, they're super comfy and stuff. And to him, it's no different than him snuggling up with a blanket. It feels good. It's cozy on his face. He's not bothered by it. And so I look at their attitude and I think, oh my goodness, we grown-ups could, because the kids, I realize it's not that way for every child. So I'm not trying to just clump everybody, but man, I look at a lot of kids these days, and they're like, hey, it's what we do now. It's
yeah.
okay. We're we we're we're adjusting, and we'll be okay. And so, as long as we need to, in order to love our neighbors well, and that's what my husband and I say all the time, it's like, is it a bother? Maybe
Yeah.
sometimes, I don't know. But do I want to love my neighbors well? And the
Right.
answer is yes.
That's true.
And so to get to where, like on Sunday this past weekend, we masked up and went and had church. We meet online right now. Our church is so small that we have literal Zoom meeting church, which we can talk to each other and stuff, which is fun. But we went over to a neighbor's house who attends church with us. Her husband passed away over the holidays.
Mm.
She and I wrote and said, "Hey, Sue, can we come to church? Can we come to church with you?" And we all sat in the living room with our masks on and got to reminisce about her husband, Tom, and went to church together. And you know what?
Right.
I would do it every
Yeah.
Sunday, every single Sunday, just to have that opportunity to love each other well.
Yeah. That's a great story. That just happened this past week.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's really good that people are able to, a lot of things are bad about this whole situation, but a lot of good is coming from it as well.
Yeah. I think we are going to, well, I know what you and I are going to talk about, purpose and
Mhm.
intention and those things. A lot of those things I think have come out of this protracted season of
Right.
ambiguity, of wondering what kind of purpose might we have, but also just realizing that if you look at things, the Lord, for better or worse, is giving us a season
Yeah.
of quietness, because I think he has a lot to say to us about who we are and whose we are, and what does it mean to neighbor well? What does it
Mm.
mean to love each other well? What does it mean to be quiet? Do we really need all the stuff and the
True.
trappings and
Yes.
the busyness that we have had in our lives? Or is there something to be gained from it? I think that when we all look back on this time, I know there's a lot of heartbreak. I know there's a lot of sorrow,
Yeah.
but I don't know if we are going to just wholesale say that this season was the worst season ever. Or are we going to look back like our grandparents that
Yes.
we knew, look back at war times or times of, my grandparents were old enough. My dad was significantly older than my mom. And so my grandparents, paternal grandparents, actually went through the Depression. And um, and I would ask them about that, thinking, oh, that must have been the worst. But they had beautiful, poignant
Mhm.
moments in it. And they looked back and said, let me tell you everything that we learned through it all. Let me tell you the good things that happened. So that's my prayer for all of us, is that we'll be able to look back in time and see God's fingerprints, and to see some real beautiful gemstones
Yes.
that were in the rubble.
That's beautiful. I love the way you think on that. And I do believe that God, I believe God doesn't cause things to happen, but he allows it. He doesn't stop
Hmm.
it. There's reasons behind that. And like you say,
Yeah.
there's good in everything, and there is good coming out of this. And I
Hmm.
know when we look back, you know, like you say, people are sad, they're losing people, but at the same time, there's a lot to be gained through all this as well.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
have your book. I don't know.
Oh.
Can you read this? Is it backwards?
It is. It is. You can read it.
You can
I'm
read it. I
impressed.
have it.
Yes.
It's right. One woman can change the world, and I'll tell you what. If that cover does not catch somebody's attention when it's on the shelf in a bookstore, I don't know what will. Because
I've
just
I've
the
gotten
title,
letters from folks saying the
yes,
title, the
the
title.
title alone is enough to want to pick it up and want to know what it's about. So we will be talking about that. But like you said earlier, um, we what I want to talk about today is living an intentional life and what that really means. And to go along with that, purpose, what our purpose is
Yeah.
in life.
Yeah.
First, let me ask you, what do you think intention is? And
Oh, wow.
what is what is intentional living? What is that?
Okay. And I know the whole intention, especially the past few years, it's become a big buzzword that I'm going to write out my intentions. I'm going to focus on my intentions for the day. I'm setting my intentions for the day. And I appreciate that. We love buzzwords, don't we?
Mm-hmm.
We really love to find the cool thing or the new trend to say. When I purposely think about intention, I think about focus, right? It's where are our eyes set for that day or for that season. And so, do I look at intention with kind of a bootstrapping, deliberate, I'll show you attitude? I don't look at it in that way. In fact, one of the definitions of intention, it's an obscure definition, but it is the process of healing.
Oh.
And I love that because I think in many ways, if we just set our eyes rightly
Mm-hmm.
and we look at the day ahead of us, and I talk in the book, it's not a spoiler alert or anything. I talk in the book, especially at the end, about filling the space you've been given. Because the women that I write about in the book, these women who have taught me a lot about purpose, taught me, um, they've helped reframe even my thoughts about what success looks like, and those things that here in the United States we can get so caught up in having a big voice, having um, a big platform, and if we're not really successful, and can our idea be replicated? Can
Yeah.
it be scaled? And so we have everything has to be huge. And most of the women that you're going to meet in the book, you would have never met them had you not opened the pages. But they are busy focusing, and they are focusing on a gap that they see and stepping into that space that's in front of them and asking the Lord to be an active participant, really,
Mm-hmm.
in healing, in um, in His plan of redemption, restoration, rescue. And so I think about that when I think about the word intention. I think about healing. It's not, again, that bootstrap and fight. It is us taking the next step with our eyes focused on what is in front of us for that day, and pouring our hearts into that and filling that space
Mm-hmm.
fully, to be an active participant in what the Lord's laid out. I love Ephesians 2:10, where it says that God's
Yeah.
we are like heaven's poetry. He's written poetry already on our lives, and he has this beautiful storyline for us. A beautiful storyline. We don't have to strive to figure it out. We don't have to do anything. Just set our eyes rightly on the day ahead and hold his hand and actually trust him,
So,
which is a scary thing, but to
well, let me
trust
ask
him.
you this. So, in a way, are you saying, to put it short, um, intentional living is, I just lost my train of thought. It's basically focusing on that moment, the moment in life that you're living.
Hmm.
Is that
It's
basically
it is. It's not getting caught up in everything that you didn't do
okay?
in the past. It is not reaching into a future that is unknown and trying to figure it all out. It is saying, you know what? God has given me breath for this day.
Okay.
And it doesn't mean I don't care about the future, because I do. And it doesn't mean that I don't hold stories from the past, because I do. But it means that He's given me breath to live this day, and to live this day purposely, and to yield it to Him, and to honor Him, and to, um, again, to trust
Yes.
that He has this day and I get to actively participate in it, whatever it looks like. Because then, from a purpose standpoint, it's not, we get really caught up in purpose of, oh, I have to have, again, the big thing, or I have to have the bullet journal goals. I have to have
Mm-hmm.
all these things, instead of saying, you know what, His purpose is me. His purpose is me loving him, loving others. And so today, if in my day I do laundry and it doesn't look sexy or it doesn't look
Yes.
superhero like because my day today looks fairly mundane to anybody who peeks in, my day is still purposeful.
Well,
It's still
yes,
purposeful.
I wanted to get into that too. Let's talk a little bit about purpose. I know many people
Yeah,
ask the question, what is my purpose? And I know
I do.
I have asked that of myself in the last year and a half because I went through a lot of transition through with my health and just moving a few times from one state to another, transitioning from job positions. And then when my health went downhill, I started getting into depression. And when I started getting into that, I'll say it was a pit. I lost what my purpose was. I did not
Hmm.
know, and I was questioning myself. So, what what do you say purpose is? What does purpose look
To me, when I read scripture and I look everything from, I look at Genesis 1. I know that the Lord, especially in the New Testament, and he plays it out in story after story. Definitely, he equips each of us with certain gifts, certain talents, right? We each have a
like?
unique personality. We each have an emotional bent. We have experiences that we live out. Um, However, oftentimes in that the pressure here, and I live in the US. I travel globally, but I live in the US, so that's going to be my framework.
Mm-hmm.
The pressure here in the US can be that purpose has to be aligned with a doing, correct?
Yes.
My purpose would ultimately mean my job. It would mean the thing that I'm great at, I'm super successful at. Instead of us saying, what if my purpose was actually just to embrace how God designed me? And that will play out at my house. It might play out vocationally. It would play out if I'm a parent. But his purpose, it was me. If I look at Genesis 1, his purpose was not to create a bunch of folks to do a bunch of things.
Right.
His purpose, even the way he designed the universe so carefully. And if anybody gets all freaked out about faith versus science, look at that 7-day creation and tell me God didn't have his scientific head on straight.
Yes.
He knew exactly how things were supposed to be created to, to create an environment that could sustain human life.
Mm-hmm.
He knew. He built it all out. Then, and what did he do? He ended the creation story with his pride and joy, man and woman. And he said, this is very good. And then the only charge he gave us, he didn't give us a charge and said, okay, Laura, I need you to be an author and you better go out and make 6 figures. And I need
Right.
you to do this. Or, Laura, you better be the best mom ever. And if you're not the best mom ever, then you're just a failure, right? He
Right.
didn't. All he did is he spoke to man and woman. He said, I'm giving you this earth and I trust you as leaders because you're my delight. I trust you to lead out. That was the end of it. He did not put a ton of rules and regulations as far as um, his expectations of us beyond trusting him, loving him. It's played out in the New Testament as well. People ask Jesus, so, hey, dude, give us the cool stuff. We want to know the inside scoop. And Jesus looks at him and says, love the Lord, love your neighbor. That's it. If you just did those 2 things, you wouldn't have to worry about
Mm-hmm.
any of the other things.
True.
And, but it starts with, and the way that we love the Lord is to actually trust him, right? It's to trust him. It's to trust that he actually has my best interest at heart. It is to trust that when he looks at me, he does not look and roll his eyes and say, oh, I was expecting so much more from you. He doesn't. He delights in us. His purpose is us. He created us in his image and his likeness to we will glorify him if we just trust him with our days. And does that mean that there is like, and I think so many folks get tripped up on this. There must be the one job. There must be the one place I'm supposed to live, all the stuff. And we make God's will out like this tiny, tiny center
Yes.
bullseye on a target. And then we're terrified that, oh, if I don't hit it with this laser point accuracy, then I will forever be floating around in something called his permissive will, which secret, it's not in scripture. But we write it out like, oh, I'm going to forever be almost, but not quite in God's eyes. And thinking that somehow he's just tapping his fingers
Yeah.
on a desktop and giving us side eye and thinking, ugh, should have never made you because you're worthless, because you're not doing it exactly the way I wanted you to do it.
Right.
That is not even the character of God. So when I look at purpose, I don't think it's wrapped up in the job. I don't think it's wrapped up. It is wrapped up in relationship. His purpose for us is a relationship with him that then flows out in the way that we treat others, the way we listen carefully to others, the way we love others,
Right.
you know?
So,
And so, yeah, so the whole like, oh my gosh, there has to be only the one job or I have failed. You know what? I've had several jobs. They've all been great for the season. I've made some mistakes, and God is still sovereign on the throne and has used all of them. And I bet we can all look back and say that
so
same thing.
basically, I'm hearing something that I don't think I've ever heard before just by listening to what you're saying. Back when I was questioning my purpose, basically, anything that I do is not my purpose. I thought that years ago my purpose was to be a teacher and stay a teacher until I retired and work with young children. But that's not where I'm at right now. Everything has
Hmm.
changed. My Everything's changed as we moved and our environment and the surroundings, everything changed. So I thought my purpose changed at some
Hmm.
point. So I'm doing things like this and I'm getting to know different women and I'm reaching out and everything has changed. But even with this that I'm doing now is not my purpose.
Yeah.
That
But
is,
the beautiful thing
because
though, when
that
you
could even
say,
change another year from now what I'm doing
yeah,
now.
hmm,
So basically, wearing the hats that we wear is not our purpose.
I don't think that's our grand design at
Yeah.
all. That is us getting to step into the days that we've been given. What I do love is something that you just said, which I did say, God, he has crafted us. And as women, he crafts us uniquely, right? Our eyes see differently than a man's, our nerve connections are different than a
Mhm.
man's, we hear differently than a man does. It doesn't make us better or worse or whatever. It's just we are different and wired uniquely. And then God does. He does give us unique gifts and talents and bents. And if you say that, you know what, God has wired me to teach, does that mean I have to be in a classroom teaching?
Right.
No. That means that, you know what, if I yield that gift to Him, Laura, right now you're teaching. You are teaching right now, right? And if this podcast went away tomorrow, I have a sneaking suspicion that you would still be a teacher, not because of the job that you do or anything, just because that gift is within you. And so it's the way you are wired to communicate,
Right.
right? It isn't about, oh gosh, I'm a teacher, and then so unless I get paid and I have teacher as part of my title and I'm
Right.
sitting in a classroom, then I'm not using my gift. Um, I am, I am by nature, I can't not see story in things. The way it has worked out vocationally for me and crafted vocationally is that I do a lot of marketing. I write a lot. It's just, those are things that are a natural outgrowth of that. But you and I sit together and have coffee, I will naturally bend toward talking through story. That's just,
Right.
that's just me. And I love that because that isn't, I'm not failing God unless I am having a job that says marketing director on
Right.
it, or, you know, would I have failed God had Ravel not said yes to my book? No, because it's just, that's the way I communicate. I communicate through story. And I, and to give that to the Lord and just say, however, Lord, you want me to use it in this day, I'm gonna be thankful for that.
Well, let me ask you
Um,
this.
yeah.
What is the difference between intentional living and purpose?
Mm, it's a great question, and that's called a verbal staller. No.
Oh, goodness. Yeah.
No. You know, I don't know if
They're connected a lot.
they are definitely
Yes.
connected. Perhaps intentional living is just the purposeful step after purposeful step of saying, you know what, God,
Yes.
whatever you have designed me today, I I am I want to live that fully, whatever it looks like.
It's moving
I want to,
forward.
yeah,
Yes.
I want to lay my head on the pillow at night and say, you know what, Lord, today was it, whether it was a great day or a not great day or whatever, I'm so thankful for this day because I've lived it and I did my best to listen and to hear when you whispered, look left, look right, Lord, because you promised me that that's what you do. And I am, again, if my day looks like a lot of cool stuff or what everybody thinks was cool stuff, Lord, I'm going to still yield it to you because I don't want anybody
Yes.
to think that it's me just being cool. But if today is filled with mundane things, I still want to intentionally wake up today and say, thank you, God, for letting me
Yeah.
live to see another day. And I want this day to glorify you. I just, whatever the day brings, I want it to glorify you. I, I, I want my eyes to be open to see need. I want my ears to be open to hear a cry that maybe nobody else can. Um, I want to, I want to say a word, perhaps it might bring encouragement or healing to somebody else. And I want to learn to love, to be the beloved that you say I am. I want to understand what it means to be
True.
truly loved by you, Lord.
I want to read something from your book. It's on page 68, and you this is what you wrote. People have written hundreds of articles about life not being truly fulfilling until we find that one thing we are supposed to do. Here's the truth. I'm not sure God has only one thing for each of us to do. I think his story is bigger than our small imaginations. I think his will is about what we do with the time we're given here on earth, what we do with the days we're given. And that was one thing in your book that stuck with me when I read it. So I want to ask you, how do we know how will we know what our God given purpose is if it's not that one thing? How will we know inside that we're actually doing what we think, what God would want us to do?
Hmm. If we love God and are and embrace the love that he has given us, because I think it starts first, right? It isn't like, oh God, I'm just going to fall in love with you. It is us understanding and embracing the love that he has for us. So then he can teach us how to love in return. I have to trust, according to his scripture, that if we embrace his love, that his Holy Spirit lives within us and that bears truth and that convicts, right? That he says, I'm with you. I am present. I am here. I am God with us. I am still Emmanuel. And so some folks will call it intuition. Some folks will call it a gut feeling, but I really have to believe. And some folks get real scared about that. In fact, I remember early on in my faith journey, listening to some teaching that a lot of friends were super excited about. And there was something in me that just said, something not right. And I was told, you're too immature in your faith. You don't know. When you really understand, then you're going to love this teaching. Well, you know what? That teaching was wrong. It was off base. But I was told that I didn't have it in me to actually have discernment. When the Lord in scripture promises that he is with us and he will lead us, right? He doesn't want us to fall down. He says that he is the author and the perfecter of our faith. He says that what he started in us, he will complete. And so if we trust him with our lives in that way, then I think that he would be kind enough to let us know that, to show us, right? And to let us know. And then I think that he surrounds us. If we will allow him to, he can surround us with people who have wisdom and who actually also care about us, who we can be honest with and we can have those conversations with, who will cover us in prayer and who will not quickly try to distill things down into quick prescriptive moments, be able to have a good conversation about the things that we are anticipating doing. And I think that there's room in the relationship with our Lord to stumble.
Right.
He doesn't look at us and say, see, if you'd have just done it right, you wouldn't have gotten down there. Too bad. Right. He doesn't, right? We're gonna take those steps, and we do it all the time.
You know
whether
what?
or not we like to admit it, we do it all the time.
Interrupt, but you remind me of Emily P. Freeman when it comes to your voices, the way that, do you know how Emily uses her voices when she says things? You do that too. And it's so great. It's awesome.
Well, gosh, to even be likened to her at all is just
I love
tears
it
to
when
my eyes, because
she has those voices that come out that are able to talk to you, and that's what you're doing too. Thank you. I appreciate that. I wanted to read also on the same page of your book 68, another section. It says, God's purpose for your life is bigger than you think. His will isn't His will isn't an obscure road sign on a dark highway. His purpose is you, and his will is for you to live your life fully, no matter where that life takes you. His purpose isn't wrapped up in the one job or the one purpose or the one place. It's wrapped up in you. And that is exactly what you've been saying all along. And I love that part. Once we've realized what our God given purpose is, how do we live that out intentionally?
Well, I'm gonna go back to the book into three things that I shared. In fact, I've already shared one, and that is to fill the space you've been given. But one thing that I have learned is that there are three things, and one of them I have stated that this year I'm doing my best to keep in the front of my mind. I have some accountability partners to help me, and I wrote an article for the Brave Women series with Becky Beresford, and shared it in a blog post about bravery. So the first is there is to be resolute, right? It is to not get caught up in all the whims, not get caught up in all the culture. I call them culture vultures that, man,
Right.
they lie in wait here in the US. They're everywhere, but here, man, there's so many of them that will tell you that you're not doing quite enough or you need to do more. I am a woman of a certain age that is constantly reminded that I need to remove wrinkles from my face in order to be accepted or whatever. And then I have beautiful friends that are in their late 20s and early 30s who don't feel that their voice is credible enough because they're too young. So we hear those statements to us all the time that
Mhm.
we are too young, too old, we don't live in the right place, we have the wrong color skin, we have you just name it,
Yes.
that our culture and society will scream at us. But what I find is when it comes to living a purposeful life, right, is that there is a resolute quality that says that I'm just going to remain steadfast to what I know. Not going to get caught. I'm not going to worry about all the stuff that I might be missing along the way. I'm going to stay steadfast to what I know. I'm going to stay steadfast to believing that God actually does have my best interest at heart, that he does love me, that that the days that I get to walk into every day, that there is opportunity. Um, does it need to be big? Does it need to be flashy? No. And so I'm just going to be steadfast in what I know. I'm going to be undaunted. I'm going to go into the day knowing full well that there are going to be
Mhm.
disappointments, that the rug might be pulled out from underneath my feet. I live in a world that is shaded by sin. It is the world that I live in, and until the day that Christ returns, in whichever way your particular denomination decides that he's coming back or doing whatever. But you know what? There is a day when a new heaven and a new earth, and things will be fully restored, and we'll get to see the color green as it was meant to be. We'll get to see the things that are not clouded over. But right now, we're still living in a cloudy world,
Right.
even on a bright sunny day. And so I know that disappointment is going to be woven in. It's woven into the map. I know that there are potholes that are going to be in the road. I know that there are going to be days that I'm going to feel absolutely defeated. But I'm going to pray that I'm going to remain undaunted by that, because I'm going to know going in that, you know
Yes.
what? Disappointment, I am disappointment is going to teach me something. So I'm going to stay focused. It's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. And then I'm going to let go of things, of my big I if it doesn't go exactly the way I want it to, then it must not be great plans. I am going to I am going to look at and say, wow, I thought this would be the kind of job that I had. I, I'll tell you, I'm in ministry full time right now. If you would have asked me 12 years ago, do you think you're going to be in ministry full time?
Mhm.
I would have laughed at you and said, that is not my purpose. I've even been told by nonprofits, I need to stay in the corporate world because this is where I'm strong. If you would have asked me a decade ago, if I would have had a book released, I would have laughed at you. And I even wrote it down. I don't have 50,000 of anything in me. I write commercials. I write cute captions. I don't write books, right? If
Right.
I, yeah. So we have all of these big, bold statements that we're like, I'll do whatever things. And but I know that I need to let those go, to know that there are pieces of my life I've not even gotten. There are pages in my story I've
Yes.
not gotten to yet. And God, if I'm really going to trust him, and my sweet friend Flo, who is in the book, I talk a lot about her because she has a special place in my heart for a lot of reasons. She lives here in Austin, Texas, in a part of town that you wouldn't want to live in. It's kind of a rough and tumble area. There's a lot of gentrification that's going on in it right now, but it was an area that was ignored for years by the city. And she's had the opportunity to go a million different places. She has had folks say, oh, you know what, if you'll just move here, you can make more money, you can do more things. And she's like, man, but if I'm going to trust God with my life, I got to trust him with what my life is doing right now. And I'm not going to worry about, oh, but I could be doing more and making more money and having more impact and doing everything if I would just follow that person's advice. When I'm not feeling that I think God's okay with me being here and staying here right now. But I love her statement. If I'm really going to say I trust God with my life, I'm going to trust him with where my life is right now.
Right. That's good.
And so it's those things. It is staying steadfast. It um, is letting go of the things. It's remaining undaunted. It is saying, you know what? I expect there to be hardship. I expect there to be disruption. I expect there to be disappointment. That is this life, this very human life. And I expect it to be there. And yet I know that God is sovereign and that he is a redeemer and he is a restorer. And so he has a plan even in all that muck. And then I'm going to let go of thinking that I have got to be the queen of my world. And if things don't go exactly the way I want them to, that somehow it can't be God's will, knowing full well that his will for my life, there are pieces of it I haven't even seen yet.
Yes. I know the two of us are almost about the same age. So when it comes to the wrinkles and looking in the mirror and seeing yourself age and women comparing themselves, I know what that's like. When it comes to my purpose and my intentional living, I'm still learning on that. I'm still going through it. But I think the older that I get, the more that I'm realizing that my life isn't about me. It's about God, and it's about giving what I have to God and everything that I do glorifying him. I think that's where I see my purpose going. And I don't know where I was at all those years of my life. I didn't see that raising my children and, like you said, wearing all those hats and thinking this is what I need to be doing now. And this is what I'm supposed to be doing. And I'm supposed to be over here. And I'm supposed to be doing this in church. And, this is my duty is doing this. But I didn't realize back then that everything I was doing was actually glorifying God. And everything that I do now and in the future, I hope to as well.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you too. Let me look. On page 67, can I share a story that you shared in your book?
Sure.
Okay. It goes like this. I think about the Sunday morning I spent under a bridge in downtown Austin. The smells of dust and city and cigarettes mingled with warm vanilla lotion from the bold embraces of the homeless who gathered for church and a good meal. As a ragtag band played an old hymn, I watched a woman dance with abandon, her long braids keeping time with the clothing that draped her frail, weathered body. She looked at me and nodded, knowing and then saying, "Watch out, because God is speaking. This is where it's good, honey. This is where it's powerful." Can you talk about that just briefly, what that moment was like for you? And
Sure. Uh, I still have her picture too. I have a picture of her. I only got it from behind with her braids and her hand up, and then another picture of her shopping cart with her pup laying on the ground. We were there for ministry, right? As those of us who are blessed to be a blessing often do. We were there to help serve a lunch. And so we were invited in. There's a gentleman here who started with Church Under the Bridge and then started doing, it's called Mobile Loaves and Fishes, and now has an entire community for the near homeless where folks can get out of homelessness and get into tiny homes, and just phenomenal.
Mm-hmm.
And his whole world is about dignifying people, and such a reminder. But that morning, I was there to do what I thought was ministry, right? I was there doing the good thing.
Yes.
As a part of my church, which is great. I love it when local congregations serve together and go beyond the walls of
Mm-hmm.
their sanctuaries and go serve. So that was our thing. It was a Sunday, and we were all out all around doing the cool things that we were supposed to do to serve the city. What I wasn't expecting, though, I was expecting to go and to provide care and to make sure that some food was in bellies. What I wasn't expecting was to wish in that moment that I was homeless, because of the security that I saw in those people because of their faith. That it was not wrapped up in trappings, that it was not wrapped up in um, how you looked or the neighborhood that you lived in or
They
any of
had
those
nothing to
things.
lose.
No.
They had nothing to lose
And
like we think we do.
mhm. And so instead of um yeah, I was so overwhelmed by her,
What? Well, let me
because
ask you.
she just reminded me of how lost I felt. And she had something that I craved,
Mm,
and that was an intimacy and this security with a God who created the heavens and earth, and then created her and called her his beloved. And and that's why I wanted to put it in the book, because so oftentimes too, when we think about uh, the poor, we think about things, we often think about developing countries and that kind of stuff. And then we look at the homeless in our own society here, and it's so easy for us to cast judgment.
yes.
Well, if they would just, and we fill in the blank, then things would be okay for them.
True.
And we don't take any time to step into their story. And I had done that. Even though I didn't verbalize it that day, I was like, I'm going to go help the homeless. Yay me. I'm going to go help the homeless, because that's what Jesus would do. He'd go help the homeless. He'd go give them chicken. So, I mean, I was like, I'm going to go help the homeless and give them chicken, right?
Oh,
And I'm going to be there to pray for them, because they're broken.
yeah.
And I am just there to minister. And again, man, the Lord just turned it on me,
Well, let me ask you this.
as as he is so want to do, right? He
Yeah.
is so good, if we keep our eyes open, of even the way he disciplines us is so gracious. And that day he was like, sweetie, she's got something that you actually want. She truly trusts me. She trusts me. You say you do, but you got all your stuff.
Yeah.
Would you trust me the way she did today? And so she told me that, and I cried. What I didn't say, she ended up praying for me. It wasn't me praying for her. she she had to pray for me.
Well, what? Let me ask you this. What did that do for your personal purpose and intentional living? Meeting her and experiencing that.
It reminds me, honestly, it perhaps it serves, and what I use it now is it is like a cautionary tale. If I get too caught up again, because it's easy, the gravitational pull
Yeah.
of life is so easy to for us to, it grabs hold. The accuser of the brethren and sistren, or whatever, the accuser of will constantly tell us that we are lacking in some regard. And so it's easy to forget. It's easy to get caught in trappings. It's easy to get panicked about what will tomorrow hold? What will tomorrow hold? I don't know. What will tomorrow hold? Do I have all my plans for tomorrow? I don't have that. And the Lord, like, don't you remember, sweetie? Don't you remember? You don't just hold my hand. That's the only thing I'm asking you to hold is my hand, and just trust today. Will you trust me with today? And will you then trust me with tomorrow? If you're given tomorrow, will you trust me with it? And so it's good. I love that the Lord is kind enough to be honest and say, hey, nothing's changed. Hold my hand. Hold my hand. Remember your friend under the bridge? Remember, she said, this is where it gets good. She was not talking about lunch.
Right.
She was talking about me.
She wasn't talking about the chicken.
No, she
No.
wasn't talking about the chicken, sweetie. She wasn't talking about the chicken. She was talking about me.
Well, let me ask you. I'm going to hold your book up again.
Sure.
And I'm hoping somebody that's listening will be able to win this
Aw,
for free.
me too.
This is an amazing read. It is. Just quickly, can you explain to everybody what this book is about?
Sure. This book is about embracing, and I know the subtitle says embracing your God-designed influence and impact right where you are. And this book truly is about embracing who you are as a woman. It is about seeing yourself through the eyes of a God who carefully designed you, handcrafted you, and said and called you beloved. He calls you the apple of his eye. He calls you his delight. He is not disgusted with you. He is not a God who is relegating you to a particular place,
Right.
or he is a God who wants to walk with you. And so the story in the book is a multiple of stories. It is that story of his careful love for you and how that plays out in things like purpose and identity, shape, courage, value, and worth. And it's just framed through the stories of some women I've just been really blessed to meet who have taught me, and they're women around the world.
They remind me of
Because,
women that you would see in the Bible, that you read
mhm,
about in the Bible.
yeah,
You wouldn't think that women like that exist today, but
yeah,
you've met them.
I have. But the thing is, Laura, you're that person. You are, you are as much a Dorcas or Tabitha, right? Taking the gifts that God
Yep.
has given you and the way he has crafted you, and then sharing those gifts in a new, fresh way as he gives you strength and energy to do. That's why I love the story of Dorcas in scripture, right? She was a seamstress. She knew, man, she knew how to sew.
Yeah.
I am not Dorcas, but she had talent and gifts. She fell in love with Jesus. Did he say, I'm so sorry, that was your natural gifting. You got to lay that down. I got something else for you to do? No, he was like, woman, you know how to sew clothes.
Yeah.
So here are some new folks for you to sew clothes. And she did the same thing on a Tuesday, right? After falling in love with Jesus that she had done on Monday. She just did it with this new and infused power and strength. And I love that about, because it wasn't, again, like everything changed. She had to do something
Right.
else. It was, she did the things that she knew to do. She used the same gifts and talents. Her voice didn't change. Nothing got weird. And so we are those women in scripture. We are, right? I'm thankful that I got to meet these women because they do live in places where there is a lot of oppression against
Mm-hmm.
women. there is, and so it helped me also because a lot of times we here in our country will talk about oppression and things. And I'm like, "Ugh, yeah, we do have some, but I tell you, there's some places where it's like significant, where a woman can be killed for speaking, but yet they're speaking. And but if you ask them, it's not like as they're all like, yeah, watch me, I'm so tough. They
It's just who
all have
they
this,
are.
they're just doing the thing. Go back to Emily P. Freeman.
Yeah.
They're just doing the next right thing,
Next
right?
right thing.
They are just they're just taking the next step. They're not trying to figure out how to replicate or create a multi-million dollar business or how to expand their ministry or how to get on a big stage. They just doing the next step. They take the next step. And I love that because it has simplified my life.
Mhm.
Um, do I mean, in the midst of a pandemic and all that kind of stuff? Yep. I've been reminded oftentimes of the words that are in there to like, oh my gosh, I'm freaking out because things aren't going according to plan. And I've had to lay down a lot of big ideas that I already had.
Mhm.
And then I think about Lucy in far northeast India.
Your heart is still back there with all those women. I can
It
tell.
is. It
Yes.
is. But I'm like,
Yes.
oh my gosh, if I was sitting with Lucy right now, she would look at me and say, just do the next right thing. And her whole thing is like, man, I just want to die. When I die, I just want to know that I've just been spent. Whatever. It's all good. Like, oh, it's like, I don't want to die gracefully. I just want to be spent. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, cool. Me too. Um, but I love that, you know, that's my prayer is that the book will get to take you places so you can hear a collective of voices, a
And it
really
did.
beautiful symphony
It
of
did.
voices to remind you of just how incredible you are as a woman. And it is not in a girl boss
Right.
way, and it's not in a hearth and home way. It is just,
Humble.
you are really amazing as a woman. And 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 the Lord, gosh, he likes you. He doesn't just love you. He actually likes you.
Yes.
So yeah.
Well, I totally appreciate your book, and I'm so glad you came on and to talk about intentional living and purpose and letting me read some of your book out loud
Oh, thank
to the
you.
listeners. Now, I know you have a project going on right now, and a lot of us have this thing that we use as one word, like a new year
Hmm.
comes up. Like my word this year is self care,
Yeah.
but you're working on a word, and it's gather,
Hmm.
Gather, gather, and you say
Gather.
there's so
It's all
many.
over. It's all over Target, Walmart. They're everywhere.
How
There's
many?
gather.
You said there's how many meanings so far that
Oh,
you've to that word?
I am a word nerd, I guess, but I love to, when I feel that kind of nudge about a word of the year, I love to look it up just to see what the
Got it.
definition is. Well, as I like when I'm saying, oh, intentional, there's an obscure meaning. It means healing. Um, and what I realize with gather, I know that there are more definitions in that, but I found 12 different definitions. And so it kind of sparked this thing in me that, you know what, I'm going to take one of the definitions each month and I'm going to ask the Lord to, I'm going to allow that to be kind of woven into my quiet time, my study and journal time. And then I'm going to share it on Instagram and on my blog and things. And so that's what I'm doing. I'm now almost 2 months into writing things. I've had somebody say, "Oh, is this your next book?" And the answer is, "Well, I don't know. Would you buy it?" But it is. And the thing is that it's not really to invite somebody on a journey with me as I'm walking the road
Right.
is it's definitely vulnerable. Um, there are things that I have already shared that I wasn't expecting to share. Things that I have written that I'll be sharing in the coming weeks and months. Things from my past that the Lord is bringing to memory. And that's what I love too about the Lord, just overall. It's not that He's like, yeah, that was for 5 years ago. I love that He will bring to your remembrance something, a beautiful thing that you were taught, or something that you read, or something maybe that you wrote in a journal from the past. And then He puts more beautiful context around it and meaning around it. And so that's what I'm doing. So if anybody follows me on Instagram,
Where is that
um,
at? Where can they?
oh, it's Ronne Rock, which is RONNE ROCK. I had to be a little different so folks wouldn't think I was a dude, even though I do get a lot of friends in trouble and they're like, I'm going to go out with my friend Ronnie. And their husbands go, who's he? I'm like, oh, it's a girl. Um, but so I'm sharing those things on Instagram as long as the Lord gives me breath, and
Well, I'm
then
following along.
whatever.
I'm totally enjoying it. And I think it could
Thank
be your
you.
next right book, the next
Oh,
next
well,
book.
we will, we'll see. We'll just see. I've really, this year, I just want my time with the Lord. I want all of us to have that I want us to be compelled by the love of Christ and not feel the compulsion of culture, or that sense of obligation. Oh my gosh, if I don't do everything, I'm going to fail in some way. Um, I'm praying. So, like I said, in this season, and we're almost 2 months down, and I'm still sticking with it. So
It's great.
hey,
Well, I have truly enjoyed this conversation. Um, like I said, we've rescheduled it a few different times. This is like the
we
third
did.
time we finally were able to do it today. And I've been so blessed just by talking to you. It's been great. And
Well,
where can everyone find you? Where's that one place that if everybody wanted to look you up, where would you want them to go?
you know what? I would say Instagram, because I think
Okay.
that is probably the most
You're active?
consistent. It's consistent. I'm in my DMs. I
Um,
love to pray for you guys, and often even say that on Instagram. It's like, hey, if you need prayer, send me a message. We're just going to pray right now. But I feel like Instagram still, for the most part, is a kind and tender place. So that's where I hang out. I put stuff on my website. I'm over on Facebook and all that kind of stuff too. But if you're on Instagram, hang out with me there.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing your time with me today.
Oh, Laura, this was fun.
I
This was
enjoyed it.
fun. Yes, I
So
can't
maybe
wait
I
until we see
can,
each other in real life, human person
yes,
that's not on a screen
yes, without a mask. Um,
without a mask.
Maybe I can have you back sometime when you write that next book, or maybe you can come back and we'll talk about all the different meanings of the word gather.
That sounds good.
All
I'll
right.
gather my thoughts and we'll talk about
Sounds good.
it.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
I'll talk to you later.